Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Welcome to USA Prepares. This is your captain speaking, John Ragan. I will be sitting in the pilot seat today. Vincent had one of those conflicts that we all have, where you can't be in two places at once. So I got one of those calls. Hey, John, which is code for how would you like to host? So here I am, and I'm going to take the opportunity of hour number one here to cover some of the things we didn't get to yesterday, including some of the things that I didn't even get on the post for yesterday. So if you want to follow along at home, the long web address is thefinancialstateoftheunion.com. The much easier one to key in is eze33.org, stands for Ezekiel 33. And the news tab at either one of those sites will bring you to the posts. And I'm going to start off with what we didn't get to yesterday, which was in the financial and employment section. And then we'll scoot on over to today. And then for hour number two, we have Mike Kerr calling in from Hear the Watchman. And boy, are things heating up for Dallas, and we'll get into that then. Oh boy, there's just no shortage of evidence of what kind of shape we're in. And unfortunately, there's certain things Trump is just not going to be able to fix, and what he can fix typically won't be able to be done quickly. I guess the best news is that in certain areas of our lives, we shouldn't be experiencing as many attacks, but that doesn't mean we can stop, nor does it mean we can afford to be ill-prepared for what's coming. I do believe that we can rest a little easier. The way things were gearing up, had Hillary won, there's would have been a good chance that we'd see World War III before the end of the year. Russia is not looking to start a war, but the attitude of Russia is, if war is inevitable, they will strike first and strike hard to win. Not like the United States, who goes in, mucks things up, and spends tons of money to keep the war going on. And then once we decide that we're done playing in that sandbox, we'll pull out and let things be even worse than when we got there. So the bad news is that the financial condition hasn't changed one bit. The government's still nearly $20 trillion in debt, with the foot on the accelerator. Fully expect that to be over 20 trillion before Inauguration Day. And even once Trump gets in office, he's not going to be able to change much of that because so much is already baked into the system that even when you want to do changes, that there's limits. And having to work with Congress, he's got enemies both on the Democrat and Republican side of the aisle. So it'll be interesting for sure. Stay tuned, and we'll keep looking. Well, first up, from the financial section on yesterday, Caterpillar continues slump. The Caterpillar retail sales declines for the 47th consecutive month. And you think of them, you might think about tractors, but they also have a lot of other heavy equipment. So a lot of construction is not going on. When you look at the chart that's at the bottom of the article, you'll see how they went into a deep negative during the Great Recession. Then they bounced back and had a pretty good time, and then that started going down, went down to zero, and now for 47 months, it's been below zero. And this chart is year over year change. It doesn't show the cumulative change, and that would make that even deeper than what you're seeing. And that's just an indication of what's going on in the real economy. Despite what Obama would say, it's scary. The next one, I was thinking about, Houston has a problem. It gets ugly in Houston. If you remember, we had high oil prices, and then in July 2014, when the oil bust started, then 2015, you started seeing bankruptcies, and even in 2016, it gets worse, but that was just the oil side of things. And of course, Houston has always been big in oil. After the oil problem of the 80s, they did manage to diversify their economy a bit. But we're seeing the effects of what happens when a nice, well-paying sector has a problem. Sales of new cars and trucks fell 17% in October year over year. It's the 10th month in a row of year over year declines. Just over 250,000 vehicles have sold. That's a decrease of over 22% compared to the same period last year. The car sales, and these are new car sales, plunged 19% in October, making 30% year to date. There's about 175 new car and truck dealers in the Houston area. They employ over 30,000 people. And when you see the chart of the 12-month total of vehicle sales, it's not pretty. It was going sideways for 2007 and 2008, and then 2009, it took that roller coaster dip down. and bottomed out for 2010, started going back up, and then everybody got all happy in 2012, and it started a recovery to a little bit better than what it was before the 2008 crash. Started going sideways again, and now it's back to seeing that roller coaster ride down. And if 2008 was any indication, it's only about halfway there. We're seeing employment being a mixed picture in Houston. Service sector's fair, little over 1%, almost 2% increase in jobs. Goods producing, it's down 5%. And the overall employment rate has gone from 4.8% from September of last year to 5.7% in September of this year. And yeah, it's just one thing after another. And of course, Houston also has, pretty much turned to the dark side, kind of like Dallas and also Austin, where you have a lot more Democrats in power. If you look at the county map from the election, you'll see that blue blip in North Texas. And unfortunately, that's Dallas County right here where I am. It's interesting that, you think back just 53 years ago, Dallas was pretty Republican. And of course, 53 years ago today was the day JFK took a ride through downtown for the last time. And then we had LBJ, which I'm somewhat embarrassed to say is a Texan that came in and really did a number to the country. He took away, not directly but indirectly, by changing the silver money to fake money, canceling the silver certificates. And this is John Ragan at the controls today. Vince will be back tomorrow, and since this will be the last time I'm with you before Thanksgiving, let me take this opportunity to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I know it's going to be tough for some people. You may or may not have friends and relatives to spend it with. And if you do have friends and relatives to spend it with, some of them may have been Hillary supporters, and that can make for some interesting discussion. Well, yesterday we passed over the financial and employment section on the resources, and I hit the Obama's other gift down the bigger picture. And that talked about all the thousands and thousands of pages of regulations and how Obama has issued, under his administration, the most regulations ever. And this year is already a record. And we still have over a month left. It's, I guess the good news on this part is regulations that are done in the waning days of the administration are much easier to overturn. Once they are regulations, though, they are very tough to undo. It would be nice if Congress would fix that. I wouldn't hold my breath, but it's really tyranny. And these regulations cost money. It may not be directly, but I would say most of these affect the way businesses do business. And those costs, of course, are passed along to you, baked into the cost of the product. Turning to the financial section, Obama's gift. Obama on pace to increase the debt by a stunning $2.4 trillion this year. And the way they came up with that is since the start of the 2017 fiscal year, which was October 1st, debt is up nearly $300 billion, $294 billion. That's an annualized increase of 14%. So if it keeps up at that pace, the debt will increase by 2.4 trillion, and that would not necessarily be the budget deficit. We've talked about how that's a farce they use. And so we would be above 21 trillion in debt by next September when they get an opportunity to pass the budget for FY 2018. It's the thing is, we look at what Trump has to deal with: Social Security and Medicare, the unfunded liabilities discussed time and time again. Just going by the rosy picture using GAAP numbers takes more than all the money in the world to fix. And then even with all the money in the world, you still have to have a place to invest it at 5.7%. When you use the alternate fiscal scenario that the Congressional Budget Office publishes, which is a more realistic projection for the future, which is where Professor Kotlikoff gets his numbers, that's over $200 trillion, which is more than twice all the money in the world. And I have yet to see anybody offer up a solution on how we fix a problem that's going to take all the money in the world. But that's not what's going to give us problems. What's going to give us problems is the rising interest rates, which will crash the bond market and increase the deficit. This is John Ragan sitting in for Vincent today. Continuing on, not a recession. Industrial production contracts for the 14th straight month, the longest non-recessionary streak in 96 years. And we have to go back to over a year ago when the administration changed the way they calculate GDP. And the numbers they give us are doubly adjusted. And one of the people I follow said that if you want to readjust it back to the way GDP was, you need to subtract about 3% from the number they provide. And given that the number has been under 3%, that would suggest that we have been negative on GDP, which just 2 months in a row of that would be the indicator of a recession. And we've been there for a while. So when you see all these charts that say, wow, it's the longest we've had this without a recession, consider the lying media source. Other indications going on out there, slipping on down to the employment section, Volkswagen cutting 30,000 jobs, 5% of the workforce. And those will be cut around the world, a lot in Germany, but also North America, Brazil, Argentina. And while Volkswagen gets blamed for for this because of adjusting their software to give fake results for tests to satisfy the government. We need to go back to those government regulations that want to ignore physics and put in unrealistic standards. And the only choices the car companies have had is to basically cheat the test. And this is just another example of how the government gives you a problem that begs for them to give you another solution. And of course, that solution is probably not something you're going to like. Finishing on out the employment section from yesterday, Boeing shutters 2 plants after United Continental delays over $5 billion worth of 737 orders. That's going to result in cutting 4.5 million square feet of facility space in just 4 years. The 2 site closures are in El Paso, here in Texas, and Newington in Virginia. So you may see Boeing stock crash a bit, some pun intended. Moving to today's post, I start out with interesting interest. And we have a chart, 200 years of interest rates. And what we see here is that for the most part, interest stays above 5%. Now, for those of you that remember the 60s, and this even was true later, if you went to a savings and loan and got yourself a passbook savings account, you'd get 5.25% interest, and that was considered a bad rate of return because it was, a safe place to invest money. And if you wanted more return, you had to take on more risk. Now today, you go down to the bank and lock in a longer rate with a CD, and wow, we'll give you a whopping 1% return. It doesn't even cover what you're losing to inflation, and then you have to pay taxes on top of that. And even in the 1800s, when interest rates dipped down, looks like it got somewhere between 3 and 4%, bounced back up, and then with the Depression came back down probably to about the 3% rate. And from there on, it started a long climb up until 1981. And if you remember what it was like back then, double-digit interest rates, which was nice if you were able to save money. It was horrible if you had to buy a house because that made the house payments even more horrendous. Since then, interest rates came down, normalized back towards the 5% range, and then even continued further because of the wonderful 2008 crash. And we're sitting with, in the United States, next to zero interest. Much of the world for the government debt is now in the negative category. And it's just another indicator that no matter what they do, they have a problem. If they keep interest rates low, that destroys the pension funds because the pension funds are counting on 7 to 8% return. And if you have a category that's not paying any interest or paying a negative interest, you're losing money just for investing in it. That makes the rest of that equation pretty tough to fill. But on the other hand, if you raise interest rates, you destroy the value of the bonds, which also is a negative impact on these pension funds, which are holding a certain percentage in bonds. And while it's good for people that do have savings, you look at the federal government now, $20 trillion in debt, a 5% interest rate. Once everything is fully converted over to that rate, which is a much shorter time than most people think, 5% of 20 is $1 trillion a year. And right now, the government's only bringing in $1.5 trillion in income tax. They're bringing in additional taxes from Social Security and Medicare, which those are eating into the so-called trust funds, which just means that they're having to convert debt from debt owed to the government to debt owed to the public. And it's basically how things work in finance. It's like a double-edged sword. When you get something good on one side, it cuts somewhere else. Moving along, physicists confirm there's a second layer of information hidden in our DNA. We consider the code. It's in some ways it's kind of like what you see with a computer, where with the computer the switch is either on or off. With DNA, in nature we have two pairs that can occupy a slot, and depending on which way it's oriented, that gives you 4 options per space, whereas the computer only has 2 options per space. And now what science is finding out is that it's not just the sequence of those. You've got basically 6 feet of DNA that's crammed into a cell. So it has to be folded considerably. And there's a correlation between the way it's folded and what the DNA does. So this second layer of information exists, so that their conclusion is that genetic mutations are not just caused by a change in the sequence of codes, like we talked about, the 4 codes that you can read down a strand of DNA, but also by a change in the way the strands are folded. So that gives an opportunity for new understanding, which gets back to the problem with the technology. Yes, they'll be able to find ways of using that for benefits of some people, but it also bring around a new weaponization. There was an interesting article in the Daily Mail, this link called The Open Secret. There's AT&T building in Lower Manhattan. Rumored is it can withstand an atom bomb, has its own power and water supply. And of course, the way it works with the communication companies, we trust them like we trust the government, and we really get burned a little bit for that. I remember early in my Air Force days, I had a chance to talk to one of the communications technicians, because at that time the career fields were separate. While I was there, they came together. And I'll finish the story. It's John Ragan at the controls today. We were talking about how communication worked in the good old days when we didn't have all these computers that made it so much easier for spying on us. Early on in my Air Force career, I had an opportunity to talk to a communications tech, and he told me about how the phones we had, and these were the desktop type phones that we used to have, connected to the wall, and in your handset, sometimes it's kind of fun just to unscrew the bottom one, which was where the microphone was, and you could take that out and look at it, and if you really wanted to play with somebody, you just screw things back on without the microphone, and they wonder why their phone didn't work right. Well, it turns out that the way we thought of the phone is when we put the headset down on the phone, that or the handset, that basically turned the phone off, because when we picked it up, we got the dial tone and would start dialing the number. Well, it turns out that it really doesn't turn anything off, and that microphone is always broadcasting. Now, I don't know for sure, but I would suspect they were able to listen to that at the central office, but definitely a lineman could put his headset onto the phone and just listen in. And also keep in mind, back in this day, and this goes back to when I was in the Boy Scouts, we had a chance to tour the Southwestern Bell office, and they took us in the room where all the phone calls were connected. It was bank upon bank of relays. And for them to determine what phone was calling another, you actually had to trace back from relay to relay to get the calling number. So that's why it took a longer amount of time back then to trace a call. Today, when everything is digital going through a computer, all that information is just logged, and you just ask the computer, what number it is. So we're in a different world now. And when you have the communication company, we trust them, but that's where the man-in-the-middle attacks come into play. And you have this also inside companies, because when the company puts up a firewall to protect their systems, they have to know what's coming through the encrypted traffic. So the way they do that is when your computer tries to make the encrypted connection, the firewall intercepts that, makes the connection, and serves as an intermediary so it can look at what's in between. It's the same thing with the communication companies. They take that and grab onto it before it goes on so that they can see what happens in between. It's a wonderful, tangled World Wide Web we weave. And we're just about out of time for this hour, so let me skip down to the bottom of hour one for today. President Obama claims Obamacare is cheaper than a cell phone bill. He says that most people only have to pay $75 a month for Obamacare in 2017. You have to wonder, is he really that disconnected, or is he just out there pushing the propaganda to offer support for his legacy? And let's go ahead and go back up one to Smart Concrete, University of Nebraska. This is John Ragan sitting in for Vincent today. Welcome to hour number 2 of USA Prepares. And today we've got Mike Kerr from Hear the Watchman. He joined me close to a month ago. And there's new news, including some breaking news I haven't shared with you yet. And I'm sure this is going to end up being a very interesting hour. Welcome back.
Well, John, thank you so much, and good morning. It's always a pleasure to join you on your show, and we're just we're so blessed to have people like you and people like Skywatch TV and John B. Wells and some of the other folks out there to get the truth out and to really get the word out to people of what's going on in the world today.
And I guarantee there's no duds in the bunch. I mean, you in all cylinders. And let me just go ahead and give out your website. That's www.men.com. And for the breaking news that I was holding off because I was hoping Mike was going to be with us today. That's kind of a story in itself with email. But I'll be speaking at the Hear the Watchman conference. That's coming up here in Dallas, March 31st through April 2nd. I'm looking forward to having a few months to get ready as opposed to last time. And, wow, the lineup there is just simply amazing.
Well, we've been blessed, John, and we're so grateful to have you coming back and joining us. So many of the people that were at Fear the Watchman in Knoxville, just really benefited from what you shared there, and so we wanted to bring you back. And you're right, we have the lineup in Dallas this year is it's just incredible. We have Derek and Sharon Gilbert from Skywatch TV, Josh Peck from Skywatch TV, Pastor Paul Begley, who delivered a phenomenal worship service on the Sunday of Hear the Watchman Knoxville, will be there, and he will be doing baptisms and also doing the Sunday service, just like we did in Knoxville. And for those of you who would like something special on Thanksgiving Day, Pastor Paul Begley, I'm going to release his entire service, and you can watch it free, that he did in Knoxville. You can simply go to hearthewatchmen.com and click the button that says our YouTube channel, or you can just go to our YouTube channel, which is simply, it just goes to www.youtube.com/Hear the Watchman's Journey. And all day on Thanksgiving Day, we'll be playing Pastor Begley's service, so you can be blessed by what happened. Then in addition, we also have L.A. Marzulli coming back, Russ Dizdar, Michael Boldea, Dr. Michael Lake, Pastor Billy Crone, Coach Dave, Anthony Patch, Josh Tolley, John B. Wells, of course you, John Ragan, Jake Wakutsi from Skywatch TV, and then we have Lisa Haven, Casper McLeod, Lynn Liaz, and Larry Nichols. So it's just going to be one heck of a conference, and we just know that the Holy Spirit will be there, and people don't want to miss this. And another thing that we're doing a little differently at this conference is Sharon Gilbert, Lisa Haven, Lynn Liaz, and my wife Jeannie are all working together to form somewhat of a women's ministry that will be given there, so that there'll be help specifically for women as they face the times that we have coming ahead.
And I just want to say that, as you're going to have great information and inspiration from this conference, but it's so important that if at all possible, you make it there in person, because more important than the information that you receive from us is the connections that you make down there sitting in the auditorium. And especially with the days coming up, regardless or in spite of the election results, we need those connections. And I know a lot of you are frustrated with your church. They're more often than not, you find that most people in your church are not awake. They're happy to be wide asleep, walking through life like most of the people. Here you come, you find the alert and awake people, and I can't stress enough. You need to make those connections. It's going to be these people that you meet there that can not only make the difference in your life, but make a difference to our country.
Well, John, God bless you for saying that, because, that is really true, and that is the meat of these Hear the Watchman conferences, is that people are going to get the truth. They're going to hear from men of God who are out there, they're in the field every day, in the trenches, and you're going to get the truth from them. But the thing is, when people come to the conference, and especially this one, which is at the Hilton DFW Lakes Executive Conference Center and Hotel, it's only about 10 minutes from the airport, and there's a free shuttle both ways. But the hotel just lends itself to the fellowship. And one of the most amazing things that happened last year at Hear the Watchman in Dallas was, as I was walking through the lobby, I noticed the entire lobby filled with people who were at the conference talking with one another. The restaurant completely filled with people having dinner together who didn't. The thing is, people meet each other, and somebody will say, well, like you, they'll say, oh, I'm John, or I'm from, Dallas, Texas. And then somebody else will say, well, I'm Bill from Dallas, Texas. I had no idea there was someone else right here that thought like I did. So we have had people unite from across the country, and amazing things happen from these conferences. We have something called Mission Christian that is a fundraising campaign that we started to help a Air Force veteran and his wife and his two autistic kids who fell in hard times and actually became homeless. And they were going from shelters to motels and back and forth. And we came across them, and we put this fundraiser out. And two people who were at the Hear the Watchman conference in Dallas last year, two wonderful, wonderful people, Marilyn and Bruce, who own a company there in the Dallas area called Classic Rock, called me up and said, you know what? We just bought a 3-bedroom home on 4 acres that we're not going to live in, and we need someone out there to kind of take care of the land. And we would like to let this family live there rent-free until they get back on their feet. And so that's the power of these conferences. This couple was taken from the streets, from being homeless, put into a home, and I think that they're even, Bruce and Marilyn, I think they're even having him work at their construction company. And we're still raising money. We're still trying to get them furniture, medical supplies, and you can go to our website and click the donation button to read more about this family, or you can simply go to GoFundMe.com/Mission Christian. And, those are the things that happen. And as you said, the election's just the beginning, John. The battle is ahead. We have, as Christians, a lot of work to do. If you notice on the internet and on TV right now, what you're seeing out there is a bunch of what I call snowflake generation. These boys in skinny jeans that have never had a job, and God bless them, they're exercising their First Amendment rights. They don't know what the First Amendment is, but they're exercising those rights by complaining about Trump winning and crying on TV. This is what we have to overcome, and this is what the speakers at Hear the Watchman in Dallas will be talking about, is how to get past this, how to get out of the quagmire that we've been in as a country for the last 8 years.
And I talked about a bit during the first hour. The good news is there's battles that we're not going to have to fight immediately. If Hillary had won, we know that we'd be fighting for our Second Amendment rights. We're still going to have the mainstream media, the real fake news, fighting against those trying to get truth out. But in spite of the certain things, it doesn't change. It doesn't change the position that we find our country in. That battle has been going on in some cases for over a century. And we're now left with so much debt and so many promises made that are impossible to fund, even with all the money in the world. And we're going to have to face that fairly soon. Many of the charts out there say that we're already in a recession. And so the main factor is going to pop that makes it officially a recession. And that's things are going to get interesting.
Well, I agree. I agree. And I think that, one thing I'd like your listeners to know, John, is that at this conference, we're going to prepare you, not just physically, but spiritually, for what we have ahead, because it's going to take prayer to get through this.
I feel sorry for those that don't have faith. This is John Ragan at the controls today, and I'm here with Mike Kerr from Hear the Watchman. And I do want to thank you, Mike, for being on with such short notice. And, we don't know if certain things are just glitches or deliberate attacks. I had sent a couple of emails to you over the weekend, and you didn't receive them, and you're not the only person that did not receive my emails. And it's not that my emails aren't working, because I communicate with Becky on a daily basis through the same email, but we're on the same domain. And I don't get a lot of outside the domain traffic to test, but it made for a very interesting situation, and it was really late yesterday afternoon before I was able to connect with you. So I appreciate you making it, and still need to see if I got to use a different email account when I communicate with you from now on.
It's my pleasure to be on with you, John, and thank you. It's an honor to be on your show as always, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I mean, I can tell you that after the conference in Knoxville, Anthony Patch's emails got hacked, and some of us got some horrific emails that looked like they came from Anthony, but when you read them, you're like, this isn't Anthony. So, there's forces that are out there at work against us because they don't want us telling the truth. That's the real bottom line to it. They don't want the truth. People, it's funny. Those who listen to your show will know who, when I refer to they know who they are. They don't want us to gather because they want us to be afraid. They don't want us to be able to all go in one public place and get together and share ideas and share information because they don't want the truth to be told. And that's what all of the speakers faced. I mean, I know, what was it? I'm always curious when I talk to some of my speakers from past conferences, what was it that you took away from Knoxville, John?
Well, it was, it's still one of those things. There's so much information you have to process. You learn so much, and I'm starting to see the real lateness of the hour, and I just so appreciate that we have these men and women of God that help give us guidance for what's coming.
Well, amen. I mean, we are blessed. And I would tell you that as conference organizers, Jeannie and I are so blessed to have all of you with us. And you know, we're the just, I guess, like the glue that pulls it all together. But all of you are the ones who are really delivering the message and getting the information into the people's hands that we need to move forward and to get through these trying times, because there is hope. And, you know, the hope is the Bible and the hope is Jesus. And we can get through it. We can all get through it. And we can get through it much easier if we do it together, which is why gathering at the conferences is amazing. And if you look at, you know, Derek and Sharon Gilbert they are just an incredible couple. Derek has been at this for, I think, 30 years, and he is a biblical scholar. And Josh Peck brings in, from Skywatch TV, Josh brings in a entirely new look at different perspectives, but he's also great with the younger people, and it's important to us that we attract younger people to come to these conferences because they're our future, and we would like to have them there and help them to grow in their Christian faith, and also as men and women to grow.
It's John Ragan with Mike Kerr. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is your captain, John Ragan, sitting in for Vincent today, talking with Mike Kerr of Hear the Watchman. And you mentioned Anthony Patch earlier, and I wanted to share with you that week that I was guest hosting, Anthony came on the last day of that, which had just happened to be Halloween. And it was during our discussion with him that I had a couple of dots connected, and I've had so many dots connected in the last month. It's not funny. Just everything is accelerating, and then as I get into that, you'll see how that is going to just dovetail into what we're coming up to with the conference. So Anthony was talking about CERN and how the placement is not a coincidence. There's a temple there that the legend is this is where the abyss is, where certain spirits are locked away, including the spirit of Nimrod. And just bam, it hit me. You know, if you look back at Gulf War II, when we invaded Iraq, we took over the tomb of Gilgamesh. They recovered his body, and the reports said that it was in a remarkable state of preservation. And this was done before Bush went to the aircraft carrier and did all the mission accomplished stuff. So it's been, well over a decade since we got his body. And another part of this picture, Gilgamesh is one of the names for Nimrod. And with today's technology, I say especially with what is not public yet, but even with what's public, recreating a body from DNA, I would say is probably, maybe not easy, but doable for the powers that be. Well, when you take that, having the physical body of Nimrod, and you have CERN, which is looking to release the spirit of Nimrod, we could very shortly have walking on the earth the spirit and body of Nimrod. And this was before the announcement came out, and you mentioned Skywatch TV, and that's skywatchtv.com. That's Horn and Company's website. And Tom Horn and Josh Peck are getting ready to release a new book, Abaddon Ascending, and they've done 4 blog posts on about that book, and guess what? It talks about CERN and pretty much the dot that I had connected there. And there's a couple of other books, including from Dr. Michael Lake. So here we go. All this information is coming together, and you're going to have an opportunity to get that in frightening detail. But if that doesn't put the fear of the Lord in you, I don't know what will. Mike?
Well, I'll tell you, John, you're dead on with that. And I mean, the beauty of it is, I mean, when we do these conferences, again, we don't try to scare anybody. We try to give hope. And the way we give hope is we connect the dots, as you mentioned. And, this is an opportunity where you'll hear in one weekend, Dr. Michael Lake, Anthony Patch, you, John Ragan, Josh Peck, L.A. Marzulli, Russ Dizdar, Billy Crone, Pastor Billy Crone. If you've never heard Pastor Billy Crone and his drone technology and the artificial intelligence, when he spoke at that at the last year of the Watchman Conference, I mean, it was amazing stuff. And that's how we try with everybody to connect the dots. And we do it in a way that's filled with the Holy Spirit. So at the same time, you're getting the biblical perspective. You're getting a chance to come together to worship. This conference. I mean, if you go to our website and you can, you'll see it right there. That it's all about worship, restoration, and revival, and that's what we want to do, and that's what we're asking people to come together as the remnant body. Come together. It's time. We need to join and come together and connect all these dots. And I'm going to tell you something now, John, that's breaking news that we have not let out. We have not let this cat out of the bag yet, so to speak. But I want people to know that Jeannie and I we're tired of Black Friday. We're tired of the symbolism behind Black Friday and the commercialism of it. And we've joined forces with some folks over at Skywatch TV, and there's some other people jumping on board with this. Josh Tolley. We're going to do a Blessed Friday, and this Friday, actually starting at 9 p.m. Thanksgiving evening to 9 p.m. the Friday after Thanksgiving, all tickets to hear the Watchman Conference in Dallas will be $77.70. And that's the lowest price we've ever offered or ever will. It was a one-day thing. And if you also want to be blessed by hearing all the speakers from the previous conference and from Knoxville, you can get both DVD sets for $77.70. And that's from 9 p.m. Thanksgiving evening till 9 p.m. the following evening, and it's time zone friendly. So wherever you are in the country, whatever time zone you're in, you'll be able to take advantage of that. Tickets to our conference regularly are $99 for an individual, $179 for a couple. And then after December 15th, that will go up to $199 for couples and $129 for individuals. So, folks, you want to get busy now and get if you want to get to our conference and you want to feed and learn from all these guys that are going to be there speaking to you. But you want to get signed up now, get your tickets now, enjoy some great savings while there's still seats available.
And that is just such an amazing price. If you look at other conferences that go on, you probably have to pay just twice the regular rate. So, give yourself a real Christmas present this year. Get those tickets and come join us. Even with the result of the election, we don't know the timing, and this may be the last opportunity we have to get together and prepare before things start turning ugly.
Right, I agree. And folks, don't procrastinate. I mean, procrastination is a sin. I mean, don't do it. Take action, make your decisions, and we've had people in the past say, well, we don't know where the economy is going to be. We don't even know if the dollar will be worth anything. Well, they said that last year. They said it about Knoxville. You know what, folks? Make a commitment. Make a commitment. And it's a commitment for you, for your family, and it could save your life. That's how important these conferences are, don't you think, John?
And it goes beyond that. One of the things we learned out of this election, if it had been up to the millennials, we would have the witch getting ready to run our country. And it's going to be tough, but we need to reach out to the youth of America. We need to reach out to the cities that have become, dens of iniquity, and do the best we can to awaken people to what the situation is. And sadly, we even have to bring some of that into the church. We've, just this past week had a Baptist church here in Dallas vote to accept all kinds of sin in the church. If you're homosexual, hey, we'll marry you. You can hold positions. It doesn't matter. We took a vote.
I don't know if you also noticed, John, but the Pope Pope Francis, he just issued a statement saying that he will now allow priests to forgive women for having abortions. Now, I thought that it was up to God to forgive women for having abortions, and you see what's happening in the church. I mean, do you see what's going on? And again, you talk to some of the people that are speaking at this conference, and they'll share with you what's going on in the church. And sadly, John, we're responsible for a lot of this. Our generation is responsible for a lot of this. We raised the millennial generation. We raised them up to get a trophy for every single thing they did, every failure they did. We spoon-fed them. Most of them don't even get their first job till they're in their 20s. And when it comes to rearing them and bringing them up in the church, I think we failed. I know I'm speaking for myself. I failed. And so now is our chance to come together and to learn from the mistakes that we made and to really affect the change in America. And you can't do that by yourself, and you can't do that sitting on your couch watching stuff. You have to get out.
And you're not going to be able to win these millennials by preaching out of the Bible. It's a little bit too boring for them, and I'll finish my thought on the other side of the break. Vincent will be back tomorrow. This is John Ragan with Mike Kerr, and we were talking about how we've failed our children, and we've sent them off to these indoctrination centers known as public schools, where they're inundated with the Darwinian religion. And while they're still at home, we managed to counter that with a few hours of church a week. And then we send them off to colleges where they tend not to have that even few hours of support. And so many of them end up getting fully deceived by their professors. And you look at things the church doesn't teach. They don't talk much or at all about creation. And when you get into there and get the scientific side of things, it's just amazing. You've got other things like what L.A. Marzulli covers, where there's DNA that's not human. And you wonder why these people are under attack. It's because the opposition doesn't want the information to get out that the Bible is true. And when this all gets put together, you have a picture and a foundation that you can work from. Mike?
Well, John, it's really, that was so well said. And here the Watchman, the conference, folks, will give you a foundation, and it will help you with your family. We just completed a conference, another Hear the Watchman, out in North Las Vegas at Pastor Billy Crone's church. It was a smaller event. It was a great kind of a get-together. And, we had a couple who came down from Canada, and they brought their 20-year-old daughter and her fiancé, brought them to the conference. And after the conference, they sent me an email saying how wonderful it was to see this couple, to see their eyes open up, and that they were actually getting into the Scripture, and they had taken away from the conference something that was going to help them in their young lives. And we have to lead by example. I mean, and that's the deal. We've got we've just got so much work ahead of us, and we all need the spiritual help. We need the men and the women to guide us. And you come to these conferences, you actually get to meet these individuals, and all the speakers are accessible, and they want to talk to you, and they want to exchange email addresses with you, because we're all in this together as Christians, and we need to pull together and come together, and that's the whole reason why we do these conferences, John.
And did I hear that the DVDs from Knoxville are now available?
They are available, and on Friday, they're normally $49 for just that set, and the previous Dallas conference, those are $75. But if you order them between 9 p.m. Thanksgiving evening and the 9 p.m. the following evening, you will get both DVD sets, including shipping, for $77.70.
And if you didn't have an opportunity to make it there, this is now your opportunity to catch up. Just fantastic information. And we've only got a couple of minutes left. What would you like to close out with?
Well, John, first I want to thank you so much. And I just want to encourage people, come out and get into the fellowship. If you want a taste of what some of this is, go to our YouTube channel. We have some of the past speakers there that you can look at, and join Pastor Paul Begley for his service this Thanksgiving on our YouTube channel. Hear the Watchman's Journey.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's John Ragan. Remember, class, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.